So I remember very well how a few years ago, it was about 4 or 5 years ago, I wrote a paper for the rabbinic school. And this paper was about can a service leader or can a rabbi be on Zoom while entire congregation is present in the synagogue? And what I found is that if a person, there is a Jewish law, the halakha, saying that if a person can see and hear the service in the synagogue through the synagogue's window, this person can be counted in the minyan. So then the question is the Zoom window, is the computer window be sufficient for it? So we'll see it today. We'll try and see how it works. First of all, let me echo Rabbi Alex's welcome to everyone and say that I thought that Jake did an amazing work today and yesterday leading the service. Just want to say Mazal Tov to you. So this week's Torah reading opened with a very significant verse for our tradition. So the entire congregation of the children of Israel, of the Israelites, arrived at the desert Zin, or Tzin, in the first month, and the people settled in Kadesh. So far, just a factual introduction. Miriam died there and was buried there. The congregation had no water, so they assembled against. So they started to speak against Moses and Aaron. So the death of Miriam only described in a few words. Miriam died there and was buried there. Modern Torah scholars compare the description of Miriam's death to the death of Aaron at the end of this week's Torah portion. Torah spent much more words describing the death of Aaron. So, and that's one significant difference in these two descriptions. But also, rabbinic scholars in Talmud noticed that in the Torah, the death of Miriam and the lack of water are juxtaposed, written next to each other. So from this, they understood a few things. It probably means that they had enough of drinking water before, because before they didn't complain. But then, what's the significance? Why would the death of Miriam lead to the lack of water? Perhaps, rabbis suggest, for the previous years, Jews had a well miraculously following them in their journey in the desert. And that was in Miriam's marriage. So the moment Miriam died, this miraculous well disappeared, and people started to complain about the lack of water. So Rabbinic Judaism created many legends like this. And many legends that were connected to Miriam somehow connected with water. The book of Zohar, for example, explains that it was Miriam who stood by the waters of the river Nile to ensure that baby Moses was safe. Do you remember the story how Moses was left in the river alone? But according to this legend, Miriam was looking after Moses at that moment. So another legend connects the miraculous well to Miriam's dancing after the splitting of the sea moment, the famous moment in the Torah when the sea split, and when the Jews went to the safety, and it was Miriam who started to dance and rejoice. Since she was so grateful for the miracle that occurred through water, God rewarded her and all people through her with water. Progressive Jewish tradition took the example of Miriam and made her a model of a strong and independent woman whose merits were praised in Judaism and who can inspire many other women to play an important role in our religion and our society today. You might remember this story from our Seder Pesach. Because of this story, because of Miriam's well, we add an additional cup, what is the fifth cup to our Seder. This way, and fill it with water. And this way, the cup of Elijah is not the only special cup that we don't drink on Seder, at Seder Pesach, but it is balanced with the cup of Miriam. So not only Elijah, the male figure, has a special role, but Miriam as well, Miriam too. So she's just one of many traditional or inspirational women in the Hebrew Bible. There are many more. The matriarchs, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, Leah, Bilhah, Zilpah, Deborah, the judge, Huldah, the prophetess, the Abigail, Rachav, Ruth, Naomi, and Esther, of course. And we can continue this list. We live in a world where finally we think about representation, about empowerment and listening to the diversity of voices. It is not enough just to listen to one side, whatever decision you're about to make, but it is important to hear the diversity of voices. As individuals, as a synagogue, and as a society, we finally acknowledge that most likely we all have unconscious biases, giving priority to people who look and sound like you. And therefore, having diverse role models, like many different characters in Judaism, is important. We know that for many centuries, women and other groups of people were excluded from study. Not only religious, but almost any academic education. Today, we are standing on the achievements of many generations before us and their fight for equality. But this week's Torah portion has one more important story and lesson, not only about the diversity and hearing different voices, but it's a story of a mistake. This morning, we heard the story about Moses getting angry with people and hitting the rock. It was read and described beautifully by our Bar Mitzvah today. But we are told that it was a mistake, and that as a result of this mistake, Moses was not allowed to enter the promised land. At the end of his life, at the end of Torah, he will see the land, the promised land, but will never enter it. For centuries, commentators have debated what exactly Moses did wrong. And in fact, some people say that Moses and Aaron, they both did something wrong. So Rashi, for example, explains that Moses should have spoken to the rock instead of striking it. Maimonides says that Moses should not have gotten angry with people and called them rebels. And that was his mistake. Nachmanides, another commentator, states that when Moses says, "We will get water for you," in verse 10, he implies that he and Aaron and not God would make the miracle. So the arrogancy of Moses and Aaron was a mistake, according to that commentator. There is no agreement among the Torah commentators on what exactly mistake it was. But all of them agree, Moses and Aaron did something wrong. And I think this is the most precious gift that religion can give to people, that our leaders and our role models must not be perfect. Very often I hear people trying to justify Moses and present him as a perfect leader and asking all of us to be like him. The beauty of Judaism and the genius of Torah is in showing that Moses, Aaron, Miriam, and all other characters in the Torah are real. They're real people. They're far from ideal. Moses, for example, if we remember the story, started his journey as a murderer who killed the Egyptian guard and then ran away. When he was asked to lead the people at the famous burning bush story, what was his first response? He said, "No, choose somebody else. It is not me who should lead people." So perhaps the most important lesson of the entire Torah is the fact that we live in an imperfect world. People always made and will continue to make mistakes. Instead of setting unrealistic high expectations, the task of humanity is to build systems that allows leaders to be imperfect and to help each other. Regardless of this imperfection, the Talmud teaches there were three gifts that sustained us in the desert. The manna was given in Moses' merit, the clouds of glory in Aaron's merit, and the well, this miraculous well, in Miriam's merit. What matters the most in our life is not what you own in your life now, but what you left for future generations. In liberal Judaism today, we take many things for granted. The equality of men and women, the acceptance of same-sex marriage, the fact that we accept patrilineal Jews as full members, the ability to have chuppah at mixed faith blessings. All of these are not giving facts for Jewish community. All these examples are the result of tireless work of people who were leaders of liberal Judaism in the past. Because of them, we can celebrate our diversity and count many, many Jews in and not out. We live in a world that reminds us that past achievements can be cancelled, and the world can change and go back. A war can start again, a law can be cancelled, a country can stop its connection, its partnership with the union. We all are reminded that all of this are not given. For all of this, we have to fight. We have to do whatever we can to achieve. It doesn't matter how many mistakes you made in your journey towards the aim you want to achieve. The most important thing is what you've done for people around you and future generations. What is the world we are leaving to people like Jake, talented, hardworking, with such a good sense of humor, a good leader for his class? When we see people like our bar mitzvah today, we often say that the world is in good hands. But it's not enough to hope for future generations to repair the world. It is all of us, together with all generations, who have this task. Let's hope that one day the world will be in accordance with the vision of Isaiah. We read today a chapter for the Isaiah's critique for people, but he also gave hope. He also said that people shall beat their swords into plowshares and spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall learn war anymore. Yehuda Amichai, an Israeli poet, continued this phrase, this vision of Isaiah, and said, "Don't stop after beating the swords into plowshares. Don't stop. Go on beating and making musical instruments out of them. Whoever wants to make war again will have to turn them into plowshares first. Shabbat Shalom.